Another element you can change on the screen is the Properties Inspector. So if I click on this image, you notice at the bottom of the screen that the Properties Inspector changes to display all of the image properties, all of the settings you can use for the image. Now you can expand and diminish the Properties Inspector with this little arrow over here. And when I click on the Mac, you'll see it opens and it lifts up a little bit on the screen. If I click on it again, it comes down below. Also notice that the options change. If you're having trouble finding all of the image options, they're not displaying as you might expect when you click an image, just click on this little arrow and you should get all of the image options visible to you. On the PC, you'd use the arrow at the very bottom right-hand corner to expand and contract this dialog, but it won't move up on the screen like it does on the Mac. If I click on an element like some text, you'll see that the Property Inspector changes to reveal the text options. And again, clicking on this arrow will change the options available. Another very handy feature in Dreamweaver is the tag selector here in the bottom left of the screen. And this should work the same on both the Mac and the PC. But if you're trying to select something and you're trying to make sure you've gotten exactly what you want on the screen, you can use the tag selector to help you with that selection. So if I click on the P here, that represents the paragraph tag that surrounds this entire paragraph. So by clicking on P, I make sure I select everything in this paragraph, including the paragraph tags. If I'm up here in this headline, you'll see the H1 becomes visible, and clicking on H1 down here ensures that I've selected everything in that headline, including the H1 tags. Same thing with the image. If I click on the image and I want to make sure I've got everything related to the image tag, I can select it here. If I click on container, I should get everything on the page because the div called container completely surrounds all of the content on this page. This is a tool I'll use many times throughout this series because it's so helpful in making sure you've selected just what you want when you're working in Dreamweaver. Over here to the right, you'll find a few other handy options. You have a hand tool, much like you might be used to in Photoshop. You have a zoom tool that lets you enlarge and reduce what's on the screen. If I click here, I can make things bigger and smaller. This can be helpful when you're trying to visualize everything on the screen or zoom in on a particular area while you're working. Now that won't control how your page displays on a visitor's computer. The magnification is just there as a tool while you're working. But this option to the right of it, this controls the window size. And this is a very handy tool when you're trying to target a particular resolution on a computer monitor. So for example, if I know that most of the visitors to my website are using an 800 by 600 resolution monitor, which is still a very common option on the internet, then I can choose this setting by clicking on it. And notice that this window has now shrunk down just a little bit and is cutting off a little bit on the side. Some people think you can go to 780 pixels wide when you're designing for an 800 by 600 resolution monitor. Dreamweaver sets that at 760 as the maximum width. That's about allowing a little bit of space on each side of the screen for the browser display. And that's really up to your judgment in terms of how you think your users will be viewing your site. But if you want the preview, if you want to see how your page design is going to look, now I'm going to choose 1024 by 768. And you can see now the fact that I've centered this div on the page really helps me take advantage of all the real estate. It lets me kind of float that design in the middle of the page. So those settings at the bottom of the screen, which of course have just disappeared now that I've made it so big, can help you to better gauge what your user experience might be, even if your monitor is a lot bigger than the monitor that other people on the web might be using. Like many designers, I'm using a 21-inch screen for this training. It's actually set to a very unusual resolution, which we find optimal here for video capturing, but probably is not the way your monitor looks or anybody who's going to view your page on the web. So some of the things that I've set up in this training are designed to look good on the video screen. But the main thing I want you to take away from this lesson is that most of the users of the internet are using monitors a lot smaller than most of the designers on the internet. So if you've got one of those huge, wonderful monitors, bear in mind that you may want to preview your page using these different resolution settings to make sure that it's going to look good, even to people with smaller monitors. Also note that as I'm clicking and dragging to resize this window, that the size changes here, so I can always see exactly the size of the window. And because I still have the zoom tool selected, if I start clicking here, I'm going to enlarge the page. If you want to go back to just working in Dreamweaver as an editor, just click again on the arrow. And you can always reset the magnification by using these little arrows.